Well, thank you to Dustin again. That was just so great. Great music, great to listen to. We appreciate your passion in songwriting and sharing that with us. So thank you for that. Thank you to everybody who decided to join us tonight. It's great to have each and every one of you here. Like Eli mentioned a moment ago, Faith Forum is something that we started early this summer at Redeemer. We've had a few at Redeemer so far. We've really enjoyed our time doing all of them so far. We're trying to do something unique with these. And in the vein of trying to do something unique, we said, let's try to do it outside of the church building. And so that's why we're here tonight. And so tonight is really kind of an experiment. And so thank you all for being willing to join in with us in this experiment. Now, like Eli mentioned, my name is Aaron, and I'm the pastor at Redeemer City Church. That's where Faith Forum is based out of. And so if I haven't met you yet, I think there may still be a few people I don't know your name. I'd like to get to meet you afterwards and get to know you a little bit. So, as Eli mentioned, our topic for tonight is Jesus among other gods. Jesus among other gods. What we are doing with this topic is that we are looking at Jesus in comparison and contrast, you could say, to major religious founders in other world religions. Now, just by the title alone and who I am, you can probably guess where I stand. Okay? You can probably guess what I believe, and that's okay. I'm fine with you going ahead and guessing that. And the thing is that we probably come in here, and since I don't know everybody, but we probably come in here with several different views about this topic. And the great thing about Faith Forum is that this is the best place for us to be able to talk about that, for us to be able to ask questions and discuss it with friendliness and respect. And so, like I said, you already know where I stand, but this is the best place for us to talk about that. The central question of this topic is, with all the religions that there are in the world and all the different philosophies, why should I follow Jesus? That's really the central question whenever we have a topic like this or talk like this. Out of all those out there, why should I follow Jesus? I'm going to give you my answer right now, okay? Now, I do have a little bit more talking to do, but I'm going to go ahead and give you the answer. It's a very simple answer, and that is that you should follow Jesus because Jesus is all satisfying. Out of all the religious leaders in the world, out of all the philosophies, you should follow Jesus because he is all satisfying. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm going to unpack that in a moment. But before I unpack that answer, and what I mean by Jesus being all satisfying, we're going to start with just asking or talking about why this topic is important. Okay, maybe you're marginally interested, but I want to get you really interested in this topic. So why is this so important? I think we should ask, in asking why is this so important, or why this matters, is we should ask, what is the product of Jesus' life and work? What is the product of Jesus' life and work? Because every great religious leader, every great founder of one of the world's religions left some sort of a product. He left some sort of a legacy with his life, right? Whether that be the start of some new religion or some great teaching, whatever else it may be. So looking at Jesus and considering him amongst other leaders, what was the product of Jesus' life? Two things it was not. First of all, he did not produce a new teaching about God. Now, Jesus did a lot of teaching about God, for sure. He did a lot of teaching. If you know, even a little bit about his life, he talked a lot. But he did not merely come and produce a new teaching or a new way of relating to God for us, okay? Because you see, many other religious leaders have come and they will give us a new philosophy or a new way of looking at life, like the way of Socratic philosophy, Greek philosophy. This is a way for you to look at the world, to understand reality, or what Lao Tse did with Taoism. Okay, Taoism is also a philosophy. It was a new teaching about the nature of the world, and it said, here's how you can view reality around you. Now, the thing about that type of teaching is that it really doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. Okay? It doesn't. It's all about your own subjective experience. It's all about your own viewpoint of the world and of nature around you. But if you don't share that philosophy, then you keep on living. Everything's fine. Okay? So Jesus did not come and merely produce a new teaching about God or reality. Secondly, he did not come and produce for us an ethical system to live by. He didn't come and produce an ethical system for us to live by. This is what many other religious founders have done. Muhammad, Siddhartha Gautama, who, if you don't know, his other name is Buddha, the Buddha, right? The founder of Buddhism. What these teachers did is that they came, and the main product left behind by their life, their main legacy was a list of rules or a list of things that you could do, some type of ethical system, some type of system of enlightenment, but things that you could do. And in following their ethical system, their rule book, you can now make yourself right, or you can align yourself better with ultimate reality or with God. You can escape the cycle of suffering. There's many different ways of talking about it, but at the core, there's all an ethical system beneath them. Jesus did not come and merely produce for us an ethical system to live by. What did he do? The product of Jesus' life and work is an invitation for us to have a relationship with him. That's the main product of his life and his work, is an invitation to have a relationship with him. Now the difference with this is that it's not just a new way of looking at the world, and it's not just a conceptual system for you to live your life by, but a person for you to know relationally. The main product of Jesus' life is this message, this declaration that something has happened in our world, in the real world of time and space, that God has come and done something here which has now changed human history forever. You see, now if this is true, right, that God has worked in time and space on our earth here, then that is something that we must face. That is something that we must look at, investigate, because that is something that has an effect on every single one of us. If Jesus is God, if he is who he said he was, and he is God working in history, then we must give him a look. We must look at him. So I said that you should follow Jesus because Jesus is all satisfying. Now, what do I mean by all satisfying? I mean three things. I mean that he is satisfying intellectually, emotionally, and then existentially. Okay? Jesus is satisfying intellectually, emotionally, and existentially. Another way of saying that is that Jesus satisfies the mind, the heart, and the soul. Okay? Let's begin with Jesus being intellectually satisfying. I'm going to walk through each one of these. Jesus is intellectually satisfying. Christianity has a very rich intellectual history that was begun by Jesus himself. In Matthew 22, verse 37, in the midst of one of Jesus' teachings, Jesus taught us that to really follow God, right? Jesus taught us that to have a right relationship with God, it is all about love. And he says that you love God with your whole person. And so he says you love God with your heart, with all your strength. And one of the things that he throws in there is that you will also love him with all of your mind. With all of your mind. So Christianity has this very rich intellectual history that was started by Jesus himself. And Jesus in his life, if you look at the record of his life in the four Gospels, you'll find that Jesus regularly received questions and doubts and challenges from people all around him. From the religious elite class, from just your everyday person on the street, from beggars and crippled and all of these various people. He received all of them. Let me give you a few examples. There's a leper in Matthew chapter 8 and verse 2. Jesus encounters this leper and Jesus asks him if he would like to be healed. Right? And this is how the leper responds to him. He says, well, if you will heal me. You see, Jesus already has a reputation at this time, and the leper, in some sense, has come to terms with the power of Jesus because he's heard all of these reports, but he doubts the compassion of Jesus. He doubts if Jesus will actually have enough compassion, mercy, care on him to heal him, and so that's why he says, if you will. And in another passage, in Mark chapter 9, verse 22, there's a father who comes to Jesus, and his child was possessed by a demon. It was causing all kinds of problems. He comes to him, and Jesus begins talking to him about his problem. He asks him if he wants his son to be healed, what you want me to do? And he says, well, if you can, would you have compassion on him? Now, the father thought that Jesus was a nice guy, but he wasn't so sure. He had doubts about his power. Like, one more example. In another part of the Gospels, John the Baptist is in prison. He's on death row, about to have his head cut off by Herod the king. And he sends some of his students to Jesus to ask Jesus, look, are you really the Messiah? In other words, John is about to lose his head because he's been going around preaching that Jesus is the Messiah, proclaiming the gospel. He's having some doubts now about if Jesus really is who he says he is. So we have three different people with three different shades of doubt. One person doubting his compassion, his mercy, his character. Another person doubting his power. The last person doubting his identity. To the leper, Jesus comes and gently touches him. How personal is that, right? How personal. What a sweet answer it is for Jesus to stoop down, something that someone of Jesus' stature never would have done. The religious elites in this time never, the political class, the rich class never would have gotten near this guy. But it says that Jesus comes near to him, he touches him, and he heals him. He shows him compassion. To the Father, he heals his son. He casts out the demon, showing his power. To John the Baptist, it says that after John the Baptist's students came and asked Jesus these things, it says that he didn't answer them immediately. But what he does is he keeps on healing people around them, and he keeps on teaching, all in the sight of John the Baptist's students. And then after doing some more healings and after teaching, he turns to them and he says, "No, go and tell John what you have seen and heard. Right? That the blind see, the lame walk, and the poor have good news preached to them." Now, Jesus is almost word for word quoting from the Old Testament, quoting a passage which talks about what the world is going to be like whenever God sends his Messiah. In other words, answering conclusively for them who he was.